Welcome.
Good morning, everyone of the NOMS News community. I'm Challenge Designer Kari Walker.
I'm Challenge Designer Ani Royan.
I'm Community Engagement Lead Alyssa James.
I'm Community Engagement Lead Temperance Rogers.
And this is the NOMS News Network wishing you a happy Women's History Month.
Thank you to all the women who support us here at North Albany Middle School.
For today's special segment of the NAMS News Network, we'll be connecting with Assemblywoman Gabriella Romero of the 109th District. Good afternoon, Ms. Romero.
Hi. Can I please ask each of our guests to introduce themselves and their role on the team?
So my name is Asia. I'm the Communications Director for Assemblywoman Romero, which basically means that I do her communications. It's my job to make sure that everybody in our district knows what Gabriella is up to.
Thank you both so much for being here. Before we continue, we'd like to hear a few words from our Editor-in-Chief, Nightwing.
Yeah, I wrote that in. So, welcome everybody again for my news kids. Thank y'all so much for all of your work, everything you've been doing up until this point in the year. Obviously, we got a long rest of the year ahead of us, but there's gonna be a great conversation now. As you know, we do a lot of things, especially us at the Red Bookshelf. We love our community, we love being out there, and we love having people who also have the same passion for young people like you too. So thank you guys so much for being here, we appreciate it. Housekeeping, we already talked about it a little bit, but I am gonna ask everyone in my crowd to please remain quiet. There's gonna be a great conversation, super engaging. However, you are gonna have time at the end to also ask your questions. My panelists up here already have their questions prepared. You might find something you like too. I'm just gonna ask you to write it down, keep it in your head, and just stay quiet until the end when you have the opportunity to ask it.
First question, what's the role of an assembly member?
Just to back up, I represent all of Albany, almost all of Guilderland, and all of New Scotland. Each assembly member represents a different section in New York State, and they are able to pass laws, but also fund different nonprofits, give money to their cities or their towns, to school districts, to fund projects. And then we also have broad power for when we pass bills to fund school districts, meaning we create the budget for how schools are funded. We, outside of New York City, also have the power to create the laws about schools. So we were able to, all across New York State, create free school lunch and breakfast, which was really exciting. In Albany, we kind of already have that, but other schools didn't have that, and there was a stigma for people that needed free lunch, and they were stigmatized if they needed free lunch. They had to wait in a different line, for example, or they had a different sticker that they had to hold up. So we did that. We also have broad discretion to create the penal and criminal law, which is really important to me. I was a public defender before I was in the assembly, so we create laws around crime. And, you know, we generally create a lot of the obviously state-related law in New York that affects a lot of you. In comparison, you know, city mayors and city council members control police, fire, trash, a lot of the day-to-day nitty-gritty, and then the federal government, very different, controls a lot of that federal-related concepts like voting or big, important federal-related things. And the state, I think, is one of the most important bodies of government because we have wide control, like I mentioned, over schools and all of these state departments, Department of Environmental Conservation, your state roads. We have a lot of control over potholes on state throughways. And, you know, because of that, we have a lot of power, and I'm very proud to be a vocal person on that power that we have to invest in the things that you care about, like healthy food and, you know, recess and other stuff like that.
Did you always want to be a leader in government when you were younger?
No, absolutely not. I never wanted to be in government. And in fact, I grew up with parents that were not very politically involved. I was in a family that was very working class, and I never saw myself as a Hispanic woman represented in politics, so I didn't think that politics was really meant for me. And I always wanted to be a trial attorney. I was an attorney before I was in the assembly, and I loved being in the courtroom. I loved fighting for my clients, and it wasn't until my community and the people that I was working with said, you should really run for office, and I said, I don't want to do that. I like where I'm at. I think I swear too much. I think I'm, I like doing stuff with my friends. I like my free time. I don't think I'm ready for this. And it wasn't until the community kind of said, no, we need you to run, that I decided to run and realized that everyday people like you, everyone in the audience, like you guys should run for office as soon as possible, because we need more everyday folks to run for office. And it wasn't until I got into office that I realized that.
What led you to the role of Assemblywoman?
Very similarly, I was led into the role of assembly member because the community really said, we want you to run for office. I was very lucky to have that program where the government matches money for you. When I was in the public defender's office, I was representing people that had drug issues or mental health issues. And I was an attorney, what was called a mitigation attorney, meaning that I represented people that committed crimes but had an issue with drugs or had a mental health issue. And it was my job to get them help, because I think we can agree that if someone has an issue with drugs or mental health, they deserve treatment. They don't deserve to go to prison. So I tried to get them help, and sometimes I succeeded by getting them help, but sometimes I did not succeed, and they went to prison. And that was really hard for me. And every time I lost a case in court, that hurt my brain really bad. Meaning, like, that radicalized me. That made me really mad. So that made me so upset, that made me want to do something more with my job and my career, that I wasn't sure what that was going to be. That when an opportunity came for me to run for the New York State Assembly, I said, maybe I'll just do it. Even though it was really not in the cards for me, or something that I grew up. Some people, are born saying, I'm going to be president. I think those people are a little weird, frankly. But the opportunity came very quickly, and people encouraged me to run. And at that time, I was thinking maybe that is something that I'll consider doing, because, as I mentioned, the state has a lot of power to control insurance covering gambling addiction, for example, insurance covering full 90-day programs for drug addiction. The state has control over making sure that everyone that's homeless gets a bed in a homeless shelter, and that stuff gets fully funded. We have a lot of power to make sure that stuff happens, and I was seeing in my clients that those things weren't happening, and they were going to prison instead of getting the things that they needed to get. So I decided that I could make power by being in power. So.
I wasn't super interested in politics either as a kid. I think similarly to Assemblymember Romero, I just had a passion for helping people and wanting to make sure that the government is doing right by people, because that's what government is supposed to do. It's supposed to take care of us. And I think I was never a lawyer, but I think I saw similar things to what the Assembly members saw, which was that there were a lot of times where the government wasn't doing its job and wasn't taking care of people the way that it was supposed to. and I found that to be problematic. And I thought maybe I should learn a little bit more about how government is supposed to work in school. And so I studied government and politics in college. And I was like, this is pretty interesting. I'm like learning a lot and I'm kind of liking it. And I thought, if I work with somebody like Assemblywoman Romero, who's really interested in making change and who has similar values to me, that I would be able to help make a difference and, fight for the things that I care about, and support her in fighting for things that we both care about. So that's a short story of how I got here.
What are some things you've done in support of the youth of Albany?
We fought to expand the summer youth employment program to try and get it so that it's year-round as opposed to just during the summer. It's really important that young people are able to have jobs that are not just in the summer. Another thing a bill that I passed, it was actually my first bill, was a bill that allowed for increased mobility, for increased alternatives to cars for young people. And this came out of the concept where young people were coming to me and saying, obviously I don't have a car and I need to be able to get around. I said, word, let's do it. And so we looked at the laws on the books in Albany, and I found out that skateboarding was actually illegal in downtown Albany. Interesting, bet. So we started a campaign to decriminalize, i.e. remove this law from the books in Albany, to take off the law to make it illegal to skateboard east of Lark Street. And that became the most controversial bill I've ever done, possibly in my life. There were people that came out of the woodworks to say young people are causing chaos in the streets every day. Skateboarders and young people are coming after me. They're causing trouble, blah, blah, blah. And it was, it was a really big deal, actually. It was really troublesome and problematic. And I stuck to my guns and I made sure that this was actually about accessibility and equity, and the fact that downtown Albany wasn't able to skateboard for some reason as opposed to uptown Albany or whatever, east of Lark Street. And so that was a really big bill that I passed. It actually got vetoed by the mayor for some reason at that time, the last mayor. We overturned her veto, and we inevitably, that is a bill that is now on the books, so you can skateboard anywhere you want in the city. Yeah, odd. You're welcome, I guess. So that came to me because young people, there was a coalition of young people that came up to me saying that they wanted that on the books. Part of a larger coalition of people that wanted access to non-car transportation. Okay, I can also talk about a bill that I have that would take $50 million of $250 million to give it back to community-based organizations. Right now, when young people get arrested, let me back up. We raised the age of criminal responsibility a few years ago so that young people, when they're arrested, they go to family court, which is a court that's actually more accessible for children and handles children all the time. Right now, across New York State, the way that law was supposed to be handled is that when a child gets arrested, they're supposed to be overwhelmed with resources so that they can thrive and handle and not get rearrested. They're supposed to be overwhelmed with mentoring, mental health resources, resources so that they go back to school, i.e. absentee resources. And right now that's not happening, so I have a bill, and it's gonna very likely pass in this budget, so that $50 million across New York State will be able to go to community-based organizations that do the work on the ground, and that they'll get that money directly instead of a reimbursement model, which just means that it's hard to get that money. But we can talk about that more later. Okay.
What's one of your favorite laws that you've supported passing?
So I'll talk about a bill that I passed last year, and then maybe we can talk about a bill that we're working on now too. So a bill that I passed last year, first term, was a bill that would allow for crime victims in court to, when their case is closed, for them to get a full readout of exactly what happened in their case, so that they understand what happened in their criminal case, which is really important. Sometimes crime victims, when they're involved in a criminal case, don't know exactly what happened when their case is over. And they deserve that. That's procedural dignity to understand, when after the defendant pleads guilty, the crime victim deserves to know how long that person's going away, what they pled guilty to, what the sentence was, if there's an order of protection, etc. So it just explains it in a piece of paper, and they get that printout. A bill that we're working on now that I'm really proud of is one that is supported by all sides of the criminal legal system, the prosecutors and the defense attorneys and the court system, and it would allow for people that plead guilty to certain crimes to get around what's called mandatory minimums. And what that means is that sometimes when someone has had multiple prior crimes in their record, but they commit an additional new crime because of their prior crimes that they have, but they committed a new crime that's not very serious. Their prior crimes force their new crime, I'm gonna explain this right now. Force their new crime to have a very serious sentence. You still want to plead guilty to that new crime, but the sentence has to be 30 years, for example. The law says it has to be 30 years. This bill will allow for us to have a more reasonable sentence of, let's say, 15 years or 10 years. And that allows for us to prevent a trial or a serious waste of court resources, if anyone. This is a really big deal, this new bill that I'm working on, which to have all sides agree is a big deal. Do you want to talk about a bill that you like?
One bill that I really like that we've worked on is a bill that relates to education and immigration. So I'm sure you probably know your teachers have to go through extensive training to become teachers and to be able to teach you. And the state is able to implement some programs and regulations that relate to that training that teachers have to go through. And so a bill that we've worked on is making it so that part of that training has to be teaching teachers, because teachers have to be taught as well, to learn more about how to help students that are dealing with immigration services. It can be very difficult for some families who perhaps have family members that have had difficult interactions with the federal immigration system, and that has been hard for a lot of people, especially recently. You may have seen some of your classmates struggling with this kind of thing. And so something that I'm really passionate about is education and how we're supporting and helping our young people. And I think that this bill would really help to give teachers more tools and give them more formal knowledge to be able to help students even more than they already do. So that's a bill that we have that I really like.
Great.
What do you hope to improve around the city of Albany?
Great question. I would love for every young person to be able to get a job if they want to, not only in the summer, but also outside of summer. I'd love for all the trash to get picked up. I'd also love for every, this is kind of niche, but it has to do with taxes. A lot of the buildings, because they're schools or they're churches or they're nonprofits or they're state buildings, you can't tax them. And that's really important because the way that cities get money, the way that we create our city budget is through property taxes. And the people that pay property taxes are your parents, if they own their home. And we, as a city, can't have money to do the things we want to do, like pick up your trash, or pay our police officers, or pay our fire people. We can't get that money to do the stuff we need to do unless we have property taxes. And we can't get that good money because most of the buildings in our city are non-taxable, because we're a really old city. Albany is like, the capital of New York State. It's like one of the first cities. And so I wish, and I'm working on, as your representative, a way to make some of this non-taxable buildings, like the state buildings and the churches and the nonprofits and the schools, maybe pay or compensate the city for their non-taxable buildings. It's just to find a way so that the city is able to survive more, so that our police can have more money, well, not really the police, but so that our city can have more money, so that our city agencies can have more money, like fire and DGS and recreation, so that we can fund programs like summer youth employment for the whole year round. We need those cool stuff so that our trash can get picked up effectively, so that you don't have to see trash on your sidewalks all the time. I want those things for our city, and that's what I would want in the whole city of Albany. But how do we pay for it? It's through making sure that the non-taxable properties are taxed.
This is a question for both of y'all. What do you guys want to improve about yourself?
That is a fabulous question. I think something I can improve about myself is asking for help. I think that sometimes a lot of us may struggle with asking for help when we need it. It feels good to be able to do things on your own and to have that sense of accomplishment within yourself. But the truth is that we all need each other, and we need to be able to lean on each other. And there's absolutely no shame.
What's something you wish you could say to your younger self?
When I was younger, I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be or do or dress. And that took up a lot of my time. Am I going to wear pearls or pop my collar or wear baggy jeans or do that? And that actually took up so much of my mental energy at that time that, in fact, like, that I didn't have to do that. In fact, I could do whatever I want. I wish I could tell myself that I can do whatever I want. I can wear whatever I wanted to wear. And it doesn't matter who or what you identify as, you just need to be yourself and be comfortable. But I was very obsessed with defining myself in a way that was what I thought I had to fit into. I felt obsessed with putting myself in a box. And I wish I could tell myself back then that you just have to be comfortable and yourself, and you can have multitudes, which is very, I think that's okay to just change your mind or change your look or change how you feel or change, anything about yourself. And that is totally okay and normal. And it's okay if you don't need to fit into like a type or concept, because you are you.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what Assemblywoman Romero said. I think I struggled with a lot of the same things when I was younger. I think also, I will confess, I didn't grow up in Albany. I'm from a different area of New York. But when I was in school, I didn't really have a lot of classmates that looked like me. And I think that it made me feel like I wanted to fit in, and it also made me feel kind of shy, and I feel like I kind of shrank myself a lot. And so what I would tell my younger self is that you are actually allowed to take up space, and not only are you allowed to, but you should. So whether you have people that look like you or you don't, any room that you're in, you deserve to be there, and your voice and your opinion matter. And so I would leave you all with that, to make sure that you know that you are allowed to take up space, and you should, because you have really important, awesome, cool things to say, and people should hear your thoughts. So don't be afraid to express yourself, and be loud within reason, and be noticeable, and don't feel like you have to hide yourself, because you're awesome.
Thank you again to Assemblywoman Romero and her team for joining us today. We appreciate all you do for us and our community.
Today's panel and our other content can be found on the NNN Community Classroom. Let us know what you've learned today.
As our editor-in-chief, Nightwing, says, be great as always.
This has been the NOMS News Network, bringing you the news NOMS needs.
Welcome